There is something most people never think about. Something so ordinary, so familiar, so completely woven into the fabric of daily life that it has become almost invisible. And yet, for millions of seniors between the ages of 60 and 80, it may be one of the most quietly damaging forces acting on their bodies right now, tonight in fact, while they sleep. We spend a third of our entire lives in our bedrooms. We trust that space completely. We close the door, pull back the covers, and surrender ourselves to rest. We believe we are safe. But what if the very environment you retreat to each night, the room you have decorated with care, filled with familiar things and come to think of as your sanctuary, is working against you in ways you cannot see, hear, or feel? That is not a question meant to frighten you. It is a question meant to wake you up, because the moment you understand what is happening in your bedroom, you can change it. And those changes, as simple as they are, can have a profound effect on how you feel each morning, how clearly you think throughout the day, and how well your body continues to protect you as the years go on. Today we are going to talk about 5 common bedroom items that can quietly damage your health, particularly when you are older. We are going to go deep into each one. Not just what it is, but why it matters to your specific biology at this stage of life, what the science says, how real people have been affected, and what you can do about it starting tonight. This is not about living in fear. This is about understanding your environment so that you can take back control of your own health. Let us begin with something that is sitting on your nightstand right now, in all likelihood. Your digital alarm clock. For decades, the bedside alarm clock has been as automatic a part of the bedroom as the pillow itself. We place it close because we want to see the time. We want to make sure we hear the alarm. We want it within arm's reach. And in doing so, most of us have placed a low-level electromagnetic radiation source just a few inches from our heads. Not for an hour, not for a few minutes, but for 7 or 8 hours every single night, year after year, for decades. Now, the word radiation often creates a picture of something dramatic and dangerous: nuclear plants, X-ray machines, hazardous material suits. But electromagnetic radiation exists on a broad spectrum, and the kind emitted by your alarm clock sits at the low-frequency end of that spectrum. It is not the kind that can tear through tissue the way high-energy radiation does. But low does not mean harmless, especially when exposure is constant and prolonged, and when the organ closest to it is your brain. Your brain is, at its core, an electrical organ. Every thought you have, every memory you access, every signal your nervous system sends is electrical in nature. The brain communicates with the rest of your body through precisely calibrated electrical impulses. And when an external electromagnetic field hovers just inches away for hours on end, it introduces noise into that system, subtle interference that, over time, can begin to alter things you might never connect back to the clock on your nightstand. One of the first things this affects is your sleep architecture. Sleep is not a single state. It is a cycle of stages, each one serving a different biological purpose. Deep, slow-wave sleep is when your body does the heavy lifting of physical repair, rebuilding muscle, consolidating immune function, flushing inflammatory waste from tissues. REM sleep is when your brain processes emotional experiences, consolidates memory, and organizes the information you have gathered throughout the day. When electromagnetic exposure subtly stimulates the brain throughout the night, it disrupts the natural progression of these stages. You may technically be in bed for 8 hours, but you are not getting 8 hours of restorative sleep. You are getting a fragmented version of it, and you wake up feeling the difference even if you cannot explain why. For people over 60, this matters even more. As we age, our bodies produce less melatonin naturally. Melatonin is the hormone that signals to every cell in your body that it is time to rest and repair. It is also a powerful antioxidant, which means it helps neutralize the oxidative damage that accumulates in our cells throughout the day. When melatonin production is already declining with age, and then an electromagnetic field further suppresses its release, the body loses one of its most important nighttime defenders. The result, over time, is not just poor sleep. It is accelerated cellular aging, reduced immune resilience, and a gradual increase in systemic inflammation that shows up in blood tests and aching joints and brain fog, and in a dozen other ways that doctors sometimes struggle to pin on a single cause. Beyond the clock itself, The electrical field generated by a constantly plugged-in device interacts with the wiring in your walls. Older homes especially can have wiring that produces fields extending several feet from the outlet. This means the exposure is not limited to the device alone. It is diffused through the space around your bed, enveloping you from multiple directions. What can you do? The single most effective change is distance. Move all electronic devices, including your alarm clock, to a minimum of 3 feet from your head. For many people, 6 feet is even better. If you need a clock to be visible in the night, choose one that runs on batteries rather than one that stays perpetually plugged into the wall. Battery-powered clocks do not generate the same continuous electromagnetic field that plugged-in models do. If you use your phone as an alarm, and we will talk more about phones shortly, move it across the room and use a separate simple battery clock. For the moments you need to check the time, these adjustments cost almost nothing. But the impact on how deeply you sleep and how fully your body recovers each night can be remarkable. Now let us talk about something that has entered nearly every home in the world over the past 2 decades, and that almost nobody thinks of as a health concern. Your Wi-Fi router. The wireless internet router has transformed modern life in extraordinary ways. The ability to connect instantly to information, to family, to healthcare resources, to entertainment, these are genuine gifts of this technology. But the way a router works is worth understanding, because it changes how you might think about where it lives in your home. A Wi-Fi router does not simply transmit a signal when you request it. It pulses continuously, broadcasting radio frequency signals in all directions, around the clock, whether you are watching a video, sending an email, or sleeping soundly. Those pulses do not stop at midnight. They do not slow down because you have gone to bed. They radiate through walls, through furniture, and through your body constantly, at frequencies that are specifically designed to penetrate most physical materials in order to reach your devices wherever they are in the home. For younger bodies with robust cellular repair mechanisms, the scientific consensus is that this level of exposure has not been proven to cause significant harm, but the key word there is younger. As we age, our cells become less efficient at repairing themselves. Our nervous system becomes more sensitive. Our cardiovascular system becomes more reactive to environmental stress. And the brain, which was always sensitive to electromagnetic interference, becomes even more so as the protective mechanisms of youth begin to fade. The specific concern with nighttime router exposure is the glymphatic system, a waste-clearing network in the brain that only activates fully during deep sleep. Think of it as the brain's overnight cleaning crew. While you sleep, cerebrospinal fluid is pumped through channels around your brain cells, flushing out metabolic waste products, including the proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. This process requires the brain to be in a state of genuine deep rest. When electromagnetic pulses continuously stimulate neural tissue throughout the night, they interfere with that process. The cleaning crew arrives but cannot fully do its job. Waste accumulates. And over years, that accumulation contributes to the kind of cognitive decline. The memory lapses the slower. Thinking the difficulty finding words that many people simply attribute to getting older, never once imagining that the blinking light of their router down the hall might be part of the story. The solution is elegantly simple. Turn your router off before you go to sleep. If doing this manually every night feels inconvenient, plug it into an inexpensive timer outlet and set it to switch off automatically at your bedtime and back on in the morning. You will never miss it while you are sleeping. And if you have a router currently sitting inside or adjacent to your bedroom, move it to a different area of the home. The living room, the hallway, a utility space, anywhere that puts meaningful distance between its signal and the space where you sleep. People who make this one change often report a noticeable difference within a week. Deeper sleep, calmer mornings. Less of that strange, hard-to-place fog that seems to hang around for the first hour or two after waking. These are not placebo effects. They are the predictable result of giving your brain the quiet electrical environment it needs to complete its nightly restoration. We are going to pause here and pick up with the remaining items in just a moment, including 2 that are almost certainly in your bedroom right now and that you have never once thought of as a potential health concern. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Before we continue, take a moment to think about the last time you woke up feeling genuinely refreshed, not just rested, but clear-headed, energized, and ready for the day without needing 30 minutes and 2 cups of coffee to fully arrive. If you cannot remember the last time that happened, what you are about to hear may explain why. We have already talked about your alarm clock and your Wi-Fi router, two sources of electromagnetic interference that most people never consider as contributors to their health. Now we are going to look at 3 more, and these may surprise you even more than the first 2, because they are items that most people associate not with danger, but with comfort and relaxation. Let us talk about your bedside lamp. The lamp beside your bed is one of the most intimate objects in your home. It is the first light you turn on in the morning and the last light you turn off at night. You read by it. You wind down by it. You rely on it for that gentle transition between wakefulness and sleep. And for the most part, you probably never think of it as anything other than a harmless convenience. But depending on the type of bulb inside it and the way you use it in the hours before sleep, it may be doing real and measurable damage to your ability to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling restored. Here is what happens. The human brain contains a tiny structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your internal clock. It governs your entire circadian rhythm, the 24-hour biological cycle that determines when you feel alert, when you feel drowsy, when your body releases hormones, when your digestive system slows, and when the cellular repair processes that keep you healthy kick into high gear. This internal clock is calibrated almost entirely by light. Specifically, it is calibrated by the presence or absence of blue spectrum light, which is the kind of light that most closely resembles daylight. When blue light enters your eyes in the evening, your suprachiasmatic nucleus interprets it as a signal that it is still daytime. It suppresses melatonin production and tells the rest of your body to stay alert. In the modern world, blue light pours out of smartphones, televisions, and, critically, from the LED and fluorescent bulbs that now dominate most homes, including the lamp beside your bed. As we age, the lens of the eye becomes less effective at filtering high-energy light. This means that older eyes are actually more sensitive to blue light exposure in the evening, not less. A bright LED bedside lamp used for reading at 9 or 10 o'clock at night can push your body's melatonin production back by 90 minutes to 2 hours, which means that even if you turn the light off at 10, your biology is not ready for sleep until midnight or later. And if you rise at 6 or 7 regardless, you are consistently operating on a sleep deficit, not because you do not have enough time in bed, but because your light environment has pushed your body's sleep window out of alignment with your schedule. Beyond melatonin suppression, certain lamps, particularly those with inexpensive dimmer switches or cheap fluorescent tubes, generate their own electromagnetic fields through the wiring in their base and cord. When those fields are active in close proximity to your head throughout the evening, they can subtly elevate cortisol levels at a time when cortisol should be declining. Elevated cortisol at night means a racing heart, a restless mind, and the kind of low-grade anxiety that seems to come from nowhere and makes it hard to settle down even when you are genuinely tired. The solution has several layers, and each one is simple. First, replace any fluorescent or bright white LED bulbs in your bedside lamp with warm spectrum bulbs, ones labeled as 2700 Kelvin or lower, sometimes marketed as soft white or amber toned. These emit far less blue light and have a much gentler effect on your melatonin cycle. Second, begin dimming your bedroom lighting at least an hour before you intend to sleep. Your body needs time to recognize the shift and begin releasing melatonin in earnest. Third, if you use a lamp for reading in bed, try switching to an amber-filtered reading light or a clip-on light designed specifically for nighttime use. And finally, choose lamps made from natural materials like wood or ceramic rather than metal bases, which can amplify the electromagnetic fields generated by the wiring inside. These changes cost very little, but the difference in how quickly you fall asleep and how deeply you sleep can be genuinely life-changing for people who have been struggling with insomnia for years without ever understanding the root cause. Now let us talk about the electric blanket. If you live in a colder climate, or if you are someone who simply feels the cold deeply, which becomes more common as we age, the electric blanket may feel like one of life's small but significant pleasures. The warmth that wraps around you as you climb into a cold bed, the way it takes the ache out of stiff joints on a winter night, the sheer physical comfort of it. These are real and understandable things. Nobody is going to suggest that warmth itself is the problem. The problem is the mechanism that delivers it. An electric blanket works by running electrical current through a network of heating wires woven throughout the fabric. As long as it is plugged in, even when it is switched off, those wires generate an electromagnetic field. And when you lie under that blanket for 7 or 8 hours, that electromagnetic field envelopes your entire body, from your feet to your chest to your head, at a closer distance than almost any other device in your home. The body's own electrical systems are extraordinarily delicate. Every organ operates within a specific bioelectrical environment. The heart's rhythm is governed by electrical impulses. The nervous system communicates through electrical signals. The membranes of individual cells use voltage gradients to control what enters and exits them. When an external electromagnetic field surrounds the body for hours every night, it introduces interference into all of these systems simultaneously. For younger bodies with stronger regulatory mechanisms, that interference may be managed without obvious consequence. For bodies in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, bodies in which circulation is already less efficient, in which nerve sensitivity is already heightened, in which the cardiovascular system is already working harder, that interference can accumulate into symptoms that are real, persistent, and genuinely disabling. People who use electric blankets regularly and sleep with them active through the night often report joint stiffness that seems worse than it should be given the warmth they are providing for their joints. They report tingling or numbness in their hands and feet that doctors have difficulty explaining. They report waking up with headaches, with a kind of full-body fatigue that the night's rest should have resolved. They are told their blood pressure is slightly elevated in the mornings, or that their heart rate seems irregular at times they cannot account for. These are not imaginary symptoms. They are the predictable consequence of prolonged, whole-body electromagnetic exposure in a population whose natural defenses against that exposure have diminished with age. The adjustment here is specific and important. You do not have to give up the warmth. Use your electric blanket to pre-warm the bed before you get in. Run it for 20 or 30 minutes while you are going through your evening routine. Then, before you lie down, turn it off and unplug it completely from the wall. An unplugged blanket generates no electromagnetic field. The heat retained in your bedding will keep you warm for a significant time, especially if you have a good quality mattress and bedding. You can also replace the electric blanket with a hot water bottle, a microwavable heat pack, or heated bedding that does not require continuous electrical current. Your joints will still be warm. Your body will no longer be swimming in an electromagnetic field while it tries to repair itself. And that brings us to the final item, the one that is perhaps the most pervasive, the most personal, and the hardest for many people to change. Your smartphone. More than any other device, the smartphone has redefined what people do in the hour before sleep. We scroll through news. We check messages. We watch short videos. We play games. We keep the phone beside us so that we can use it as an alarm, so that we do not miss a message from a child or grandchild, so that we feel connected and available even as we close our eyes. And all of this comes at a cost that most people are completely unaware of. A smartphone, unlike an alarm clock or a Wi-Fi router, is a two-way communication device. It does not simply receive signals. It actively transmits them, continuously exchanging data with cell towers, updating applications, checking for messages, synchronizing calendars, all through the night. These transmissions generate radio frequency radiation at levels significantly higher than those produced by a bedside clock. And when the phone rests on your nightstand 6 inches from your head, or, far worse, under your pillow or beside your ear, your brain is absorbing that radiation for every hour of your sleep. The research on nighttime smartphone radiation is still developing, but what has already been established is concerning. Radio frequency signals from mobile devices penetrate the skull and are absorbed by brain tissue. The specific frequencies used by modern smartphones interact with the brain's natural oscillations in ways that alter sleep architecture, reducing the proportion of deep slow-wave sleep, increasing arousal responses, and fragmenting the sleep cycle in ways that leave you genuinely less restored in the morning than the hours spent in bed would suggest. For people over 60, this matters enormously. This is the stage of life when the brain needs the most protection, not the least. This is when the glymphatic system's overnight work of clearing amyloid plaques, those protein clusters associated with cognitive decline, is most critical. This is when the immune system relies most heavily on the deep restorative stages of sleep that smartphone radiation specifically disrupts. And this is when the body's capacity to simply absorb and compensate for environmental stress has diminished enough that the effects become noticeable, chronic, and cumulative. The change here is the most straightforward of all the ones we have discussed today, and also, for many people, the most emotionally difficult. Move your phone out of your bedroom at night. Charge it in the kitchen, the hallway, a spare room, anywhere that is not within arm's reach of where you sleep. If you need an alarm, use a simple battery-operated clock. If you are worried about missing an urgent call from family, keep a basic landline in the bedroom. They generate virtually no radiation. Or establish a family protocol where a truly urgent call would be followed by another immediately, a signal that something genuinely requires attention. This single change, removing the smartphone from the bedroom, is one that sleep researchers, neurologists, and longevity experts now increasingly recommend for people of all ages. For those of us in the second half of life, it is not merely a recommendation. It is one of the most powerful, most accessible, and most overlooked acts of self-care available to you. Let us take a moment to bring all of this together, because the underlying message across all 5 items is the same. Your bedroom should be the most electrically quiet space in your home. It is the place where your brain detoxifies, where your cells repair, where your immune system consolidates its defenses, and where the hormones that govern your energy, your mood, your memory, and your longevity are produced and regulated. Every source of electromagnetic interference you remove from that space is a direct investment in the quality and the length of your life. The good news is that none of these changes require significant money or effort. Move the alarm clock. Turn off the router. Change the light bulb. Unplug the blanket after pre-warming. Leave the phone in another room. These are 5 decisions. You could make all of them tonight. And if you do not be surprised if you begin to notice a difference within a week. Not because something dramatic has changed, but because your body, finally given the calm and quiet it needs, has begun doing what it was always meant to do: heal itself, restore itself, and wake you up ready for another day. Thank you for spending this time with us today. If something you heard resonated with you, please share it with someone you care about. The information that has the power to change a life is the information we pass on. And if you found value in today's conversation, we would love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments which of these 5 changes you are going to make first. Your experience matters, and so do you.